Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over NVIDIA. Let's talk about what is happening to NVIDIA, what we can expect moving forward with NVIDIA, and all that good stuff. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., well, I do share my thoughts with my members on my YouTube membership page every single day as the market is open and trading. So definitely check that out. That link is in the description of every single video. So at the very top of the description on every video. So definitely check that out if you're interested, right? Again, it's all it is just $3 a month for the first tier. All my Tesla updates, options for technical analysis, etc., different time frames throughout the trading day as the market is open and trading, right? So again, if you're interested, link is below. And also sometimes updates on, SPY, QQQ, etc. $5 adds all of that, plus all my NVIDIA updates, same as Tesla, but NVIDIA. $7 also adds everything I just mentioned, plus non-Tesla, non-NVIDIA charts that I share when there's a chart setting up nicely. And it's looking pretty good for potential swings. So again, if you're interested, that link is below. Definitely check that out. We'd love to have you there. But jumping into it, NVIDIA closing the day down, unfortunately, almost 3.5%, similar to Tesla, at 174 and change, which compared to the market is going to be a bit of arguably a bit of an underperformance actually off of the Alibaba news, right, regarding the chips. So, what's going on with the stock? Well, I mentioned many times, right, how the stock is just, guys, I mentioned, I don't know how much more clear I could have been, but I said so many times how, guys, I need to see it break these Fibonacci's. I need to see 183, 184 broken. Otherwise, I'm cautious. I'm definitely cautious. It's the same pattern. It literally is the same pattern that it did before on that DeepSeek, whatever the hell that thing was called, the China AI news. It's the same pattern. It's just smaller. It is smaller, but pretty much the same thing. Consolidation, massive breakdown, nice aggressive push back to the upside into the green fibs and a rejection. And that's exactly what we're getting so far. So hopefully, hopefully that helps someone. But the question is, of course, what's next, right? What happens next? Well, we are barely, but kind of holding on to 174 to 175. Very, 174, we'll say. Okay, how about 173 to 175? Give it a bit more range, right? But like barely, not very convincingly, right? We're well below the exponential moving averages, and now we're starting to approach that 50 EMA, which is currently sitting at pretty much $170. So if we start losing and essentially turning this range, kind of like what we did back here, this, again, 174, give or take a dollar range into resistance, well, then we most likely will just continue lower. If we can hold this level as support, we could get a bit of a short-term bounce back into the exponential moving averages, which at this point will start flipping bullish, at least the 921 will, and we can most likely get a rejection and then probably head lower, at least for a natural visit to that 50 exponential moving average, which again is currently sitting around the 170s. That's kind of how I look at it right now. The MACD making lower lows as well. I am, again, I said many times how I'm neutral to bearish on NVIDIA, and I still remain neutral to bearish on NVIDIA. Again, short term, long term, it's a different story. People always have to come in and be like, long term NVIDIA is fine. It's like, are you here for trading or are you here to invest, right? It's a very different perspective. Investing, yeah, I'm sure we'll be fine, but this, unless you have reading comprehension issues, this is a trading channel, right? This is trading. We're trading for the next, few days, maybe to a few weeks or something like that, right? And that's kind of what we're looking at. And that's what we're trying to understand in terms of price action, what to expect. So again, the way I look at it is pretty simple, right? Watch for this kind of range that it's at pretty much right here, right now. This is a pretty crucial range above which we can get a short-term little small dead cat back to the Fibonacci's, probably closer to the 176, 177, something like that. But below which, if we start losing this level, then we most likely, become weaker faster, and at the very least come back to retest the lows around here, which is also where that 50 EMA sits. If we start losing these levels as well, then that's where I start jumping to the weekly, right? You have to remember, the thing that's difficult here with NVIDIA is the fact that it rallied up extremely aggressively, right? Very, very aggressively. So there's not like too many strong support levels within this range right here that we can really rely on, to be completely honest with you, because it just happened so fast, right? It just kept going essentially nonstop. So that there's not that much price action that really got developed, if you will, around this area to give us stronger confluence among, strong support levels, etc. So that's kind of the issue, because the issue sometimes too is when a stock goes up too parabolically, it usually comes back down just as parabolically. That becomes a risk here. And I'm going to go over SMH actually right now, because last time I said I'm going to do it and I forgot. I want to do it right now before I forget. SMH, right? Obviously, that semiconductor ETF is printing that shooting star candle pattern. It printed one over here. It printed one over here pretty much, printed one over here, which was a false flag to be fair. And then it printed one right over here, which we have been having issues around. And then we just printed another one here. So this is a red flag to me. This is definitely a red flag. If the semis, and especially the SMH index over here, has a red week next week, that would be a concern. that would be cautious, at least to me. Not that I'm not even in, actually, no, I am in AMD. I have AMD in my long-term portfolio, but I'm not really touching that. But that would give me caution towards the chips in general, right? The semis in general. That would be a red flag, absolutely. Now, granted, we need a red week next week for that to actually happen. If we don't get a red week next week, then this becomes, less of a problem. But if we do, it becomes more of a problem. I think that's pretty simple stuff. And that, of course, well, naturally, guess what? That affects NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA is part of that, right? And it's probably a pretty big portion of it. So, just worth mentioning that if that starts to occur, we may have some problems in our hand, right? But like I said, because NVIDIA doesn't have too much price action around this area, because it pretty much just went straight up, there's not that much, there's not much information for us to really deal with here, which is kind of annoying, to be completely honest with you. So the way I look at it now is just simply in trend. Is the MACD red? Yes. Is it making higher lows? Not even anymore. It made a fresh lower low today. Are the EMAs starting to flip bearish? Yes, they are. Now, granted, they're still above the 50, which is good. So I don't think NVIDIA is straight on bearish or anything just yet. But if the 921 start crossing bearish, then, it at the very least signals momentum has absolutely faded. Now, can it return? Of course, but then we wait for that return, right? As opposed to hoping and crossing our fingers and crossing our toenails and or toes or crossing our hair. You wait. You let that confirmation, give you signs. A pretty good example is BRKB, right? This is a stock that I shared with my members about a week and a half ago or a week ago or something like that. Pretty much right where it was flipping. Same idea, right? Look at this. Look at nice bearish flip up here. They crossed below the 50 and then we were bearish for quite some time. And then what happened? What happened? Well, BRKB. Not only do we get a bullish flip right around here on the 921, which is a start, but then we also got the 9 and 21 starting to cross above the 50. And we both flagged into them and we turned this area into a support that was a resistance. I mean, that's pretty much the perfect setup, isn't it? And that's exactly what I entered. I'm still holding my position, actually. But that's what I share with my members, and that's what I entered. And it was a good hedge against the market as well so far. But this is kind of the thing I'm talking about for NVIDIA, just literally the exact opposite, potentially, right? Potentially. So let's see. Let's continue monitoring it and see where it develops. But this is also where I like to kind of, visit the weekly. What's the weekly telling us? What is the weekly suggesting? Well, you can see we're closing right at that pretty crucial spot here. So definitely hang on by a pretty thin thread, in my opinion. But if the weekly starts to have problems and it starts to lose these key levels, we start losing the mid-ish, we'll say 170s, and especially 170 itself, we start creating more problems, more weakness, and there could be a stronger sell-off to come to where, again, my target on the Fibonacci is assuming this high up here at around 184, 185 is held. 382 Fibonacci, 147.22 roughly, give or take 150, we'll say, to make it simple. Yeah, that's my target. If it gets there, it gets there. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Again, I don't really care, right? If it gets there, I have no emotions for the stock, which is actually a good sign. I don't have any emotions for NVIDIA. If it gets there, phenomenal. I'll be very happy to enter what I would consider to be a pretty phenomenal risk versus reward type setup. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. We trade other things. Good thing there's a million other stocks in the market. So that's just the way I look at it. And that's where I feel comfortable on the weekly time frame to start entering. We're still making lower lows, lower highs, I should say, on the weekly MACD, the weekly SMI pointing straight down. Momentum has definitely slowed down. There's no question about it. And we are printing, pretty questionable looking weekly candle. So, NVIDIA is a big stock. It will take something to bring it down that low, right? Even from this level right now, it will be another drop of about 15%, which honestly isn't that crazy, to be completely honest with you. But, it will still take something to bring it down more, maybe bad news, right? Whatever. I don't really care what the reason is. I never really care. I never look for the reason. I don't care what the reason is. It could be whatever it is, it could be something fabricated. It could be something legitimate. You have to remember, half the reasons and half the news for ups and downs and movements in the market, honestly, most of them are fabricated. There's some random bullshit that just is made to spark fear or euphoria just to trap in people, use people as liquidity. Because that's what the sheep listen to. The sheep always listen to news because once the news is out, everyone's aware of it. But people think that they can use news to trade off of things when it's just like, but if that news is already, if you're hearing it from CNN or something like that, everyone already probably knows about it that, needs to know about it. You're late to the party. The party's already started. You're in at the party at the last 10 minutes of it when it's time to start cleaning up. And congratulations, you just arrived to clean up. And that's kind of what it's kind of what it is, right? But the charts, if you know how to read them, can give you earlier signs of things to come. And then usually news follows price. That's what I strongly believe in. I strongly believe news follows price. That is my strong belief. And as of right now, NVIDIA overall, again, I want to make this very clear, overall is very, very bullish. Even if we drop all the way down here, still extremely bullish. Extremely bullish. Why? Because it's still making higher highs, higher lows, right? Ever since this low here, we made a parabolic move up, set up a beautiful fresh high. And as far as I'm concerned, any retracement from this high, is a bullish retracement. So it's just very important to make that clear, because some people get very upset when you say anything negative about their little NVIDIA. It's a very bullish retracement. It's very bullish. There's nothing unusual about that. It's not something to be scared of. In fact, if you're bullish on the stock, I feel like buying at 150 is a little more exciting than buying at 170. At least I think it is. Maybe you think otherwise. I think it's more interesting. I'm a lot more excited getting it here than up here, personally. So I just want to make that very, very clear. This is all bullish. This is still all bullish. Even this retracement, yeah, short term it'll hurt, but overall it's, longer term, it's pretty damn good, isn't it? It's pretty bullish. So anyways, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. See you on Monday. Again, remember, the market is closed on Monday, so worth mentioning. But yeah, peace.